Hey there, I'm author Sarah A. Chrisman.
And I'm Gabriel Chrisman.
And today we're going to be discussing The Shallows, What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains by Nicholas Carr. So this book was first published in 2010 and then republished with a new afterword in 2020. So some of the early statistics in the first part of the book are a little outdated, but it's still a very interesting book. Yes, Artemis, you are very interested in milk. For me, the most interesting part of the book is all the neuroscience it includes.
I love a lot of what's also discussed in terms of just the patterns of behavior.
Right. Let's first just give an overview of what this book is about.
Sure, yes.
So
this book covers a good deal of the change and shifts in culture that have happened as a result of the internet.
Well, it especially covers a lot of what screen time does to the human brain.
Yes, and it talks about what shift has happened with regards to literacy and with regards to our consumption of especially the written word.
Right. And because the first version came out in 2010, the statistics he gives in the early part of the book have only gotten more dire.
Yes, significantly.
Yeah. And he talks about how screen time and computer use in general has resulted in a rapid decline in rates of literacy.
And especially literacy in the deepest sense. Not the ability to read a word or something, but the ability to read longer form texts and the ability then to take those and understand them and connect them to others, synthesize ideas, and really engage with books in the way that, well, is the best example of literacy.
Right. And he talks about how the internet especially is designed to provide rewards for engaging short-term memory, which is very short and it can't hold very much. Top estimate at what this short-term memory can hold at any given time is 7 different thoughts. Low estimate is 2. And he goes into all that. But long-term memory suffers as a result. And because people's brains are getting retrained to primarily engage with this short-term memory, they're not getting a chance to form long-term memories. And it's in the long-term memory that we make connections. It's in the long-term memory that we make associations. And we're able to say, you know, this is happening because this, and this have happened.
So it's the long-term memory where you're able to come up with your own ideas.
Right.
Short-term memory can't do that. It's just not where that happens in the brain.
Yeah.
And so this dramatically impacts people's ability to think and to basically move beyond being a consumer of information and move towards being someone who can create new information or synthesize old information in new ways.
Right, because those parts of the brain that are the short-term memory parts of the brain, they can just consume. They can't produce anything. It's in the long-term memory that production happens. And so I thought it was really interesting when he pointed out that actually Silicon Valley took a big cue from Las Vegas, because all of those little emoticons, the emojis that people use to respond to posts, the likes, the hearts, the smiley faces, they got those from the slot machine industry. And
there's been some back and forth there because the whole Las Vegas gambling world was moving towards electronic devices during this same period.
Right.
And so there was some parallel development here.
Well, I thought it was very fascinating that the social media industry has actually been learning and taking ideas from the gambling industry because they are playing on the same parts of people's brains.
Exactly. The whole addictive nature of this sort of engagement that provides very quick rewards. And it is so different from the sort of literacy that was encouraged, certainly that we admire, the sort of literacy of the late 19th century and for a lot of the 20th century, where really what was rewarded was this long-term engagement with texts, this contemplative ability to absorb these ideas, bring them in, and then come forth with your own idea. And it was not as widespread. It wasn't for everybody. But now it's being eliminated for everybody simply because this is the way that people are engaging with anything. And because fewer books are being published in the traditional format, and more of them are being published in the electronic format. And that's one of the things, is that even if you have an ebook version of something, it doesn't mean that people engage with it in the same way as a physical book. And so the fact that newspapers are now available online doesn't mean that people engage with them the same way they engaged with a print newspaper. It just isn't the case.
Right. And he goes into that. You keep talking, I'll find some of the passages where he discusses that.
Sure, yeah. And this is the case for a lot of the academic world as well, where, of course, more and more readings are assigned that are just online, whether it's an e-textbook or anything like that. And the assumption is that this is exactly the same as assigning a physical book, and it is not. It doesn't provide the same engagement for the brain, it doesn't provide the same degree of learning, and people just don't engage with it the same way. Reading something on a screen, even if it's an academic textbook, you're subject to just the same distractions that you are when you're engaging with TikTok or any of the social media applications. The most fascinating thing I heard in this that was in the new addendum, I think. I read the older edition, you read the newer one. But there was a bit in there that you read out to me that discussed how students taking a test all had to turn their phones off, but certain of them just put it face down on their desk. Others had to put it elsewhere in the room, and some had to put it outside of the room. And the students who did best on the test were the ones who put their phones outside of the room. And the ones who did worst were the ones who had it still on the desk. Even turned off with the screen down, the presence of that device was distracting enough that it caused them to do worse on the test.
Right.
And that is true with a lot of these things. So if you're looking at a screen that's on, even if it's displaying a textbook, an e-textbook, it is going to be really hard to engage with that in the sort of way that is required for deep learning.
Right.
For people who have already been conditioned by that device to be distracted and to continually move towards quick, short-term rewards.
And here's the part where he's talking about this. As soon as you inject a book with links and connect it to the web, as soon as you extend and enhance it and make it dynamic, you change what it is, and you change as well the experience of reading it. An e-book is no more a book than an online newspaper is a newspaper. I fear that one of the great joys of book reading, the total immersion in another world, or the world of the author's ideas, will be compromised. We may read books the way we increasingly read magazines and newspapers, a little bit here, a little bit there. And then it goes on to discuss Christine Rosen, a fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center in Washington, D.C., recently wrote about her experience using a Kindle to read Dickens' novel Nicholas Nickleby. Her story underscores Johnson's fears. Quote, "Although mildly disorienting at first, I quickly adjusted to the Kindle's screen and mastered the scroll and page turn buttons. Nevertheless, my eyes were restless and jumped around as they do when I read for a sustained time on the computer. Distractions abounded. I looked up Dickens on Wikipedia, then jumped straight down the internet rabbit hole following a link about a Dickens short story, Mugby Junction. 20 minutes later, I still hadn't returned to my reading of Nickleby on the Kindle."
And that sort of thing is, and that's the sort of best example of that in some ways, because that's the way that people think, oh, but she's still learning about this. But the fact is that even following all these related links and reading more, topics that are tangentially related, it doesn't help you learn what you were setting out to learn.
Well, it's still at that point only engaging in the consumerist short-term memory.
Right.
She's not actually pausing to reflect and pausing to really focus.
And to let the brain transfer those memories to long-term.
Right, right.
And that long-term, again, is where you're actually able to work with it and be able to synthesize ideas and come up with your own and understand truly what the writer was actually trying to put out there.
Right.
And a lot of these things, the longer form stories, the narratives that are in even the nonfiction books, people just aren't grasping those. If it can't be expressed in just a 2-second soundbite, then it gets beyond the reach of people who simply don't have the attention span for it.
Right, right. And in this book, Nicholas Carr goes into how the online environment is specifically designed to encourage shallow engagement. So, here he says it. One thing is very clear. If knowing what we know today about the brain's plasticity, we were to set out to invent a medium that would rewire our mental circuits as quickly and as thoroughly as possible, you would probably end up designing something that looks and works a lot like the internet. It's not just that we tend to use the net regularly, even obsessively. It's that the net delivers precisely the kind of sensory and cognitive stimuli, repetitive, intensive, interactive, addictive, that have shown to result in strong and rapid alterations in brain circuits and functions.
Well, the good news about all this is what he mentioned there, the plasticity of the brain.
Right.
This is something that has happened. It's not something that requires an entire lifetime to change.
Right.
It's something that can be shaped by our choices.
And the good news is about that, because the brain is plastic, it can change back.
Yes.
So, the good news is that when people's brains have changed to this really short-term, shallow engagement, and they feel that they can't focus on a book anymore because the computer use has rewired their brain so much to only ever want instant gratification, you can retrain your brain.
Yes.
Because the brain is endlessly elastic. And he goes into, and I loved this bit, I think this is actually in the afterword, in the new bit, where he points out that unlike what Conan Doyle said with Sherlock Holmes, the brain is not finite. The human brain is not just a cupboard where you have room for a certain number of things and no more. The brain, whenever you use it, whenever you create more connections and lengthen your neurons, it gets bigger. So trying to outsource your brain to say, well, I don't need to remember this because I need to free up the space for this other thing, the human brain doesn't work that way. It's like a muscle. The more you use it, the more you can use it, and the stronger it gets. And so the more you read in real books, the more you can read.
Yes. The more you actually practice putting things into long-term memory, learning an entire long-form narrative, a story from another author, experiencing a book the way it was meant to be experienced, you will get better at it, and you will be able to do more with it. And so one of the things that I'm thinking of today, given that we're recording this on New Year's Eve, is if you want to do something that is good for your brain, is good for yourself, is good for your learning and understanding of, well, pretty much everything in the world, read more books. Take the time. Set aside time to just read, not be distracted by other things, and just engage with a book. Doesn't even matter at the beginning what book it is. The more that you're able to do that, the more that all those books that you might be interested in reading will be open to you.
Absolutely. And I think that's our takeaway for today. So, the more you read, the more you can read. And the better it gets.
Absolutely.
So, thank you for watching today, and we hope that's a good message for your opening new year. And remember to tell your friends about my books, too. Happy reading!